Hello, I've not got a project as such today. What I want to try and do is go through some of my top tips for getting good results and kind of do some myth busting. So people have preconceptions about foiling, what card they ought to use, things that they ought to do with their foiling platform, and I just want to sort the real things from the assumptions, basically. I can only advise on what I do, and I get pretty consistently good results. I'm not going to say they're perfect every time. There are some occasions when I'm doing a project and I end up foiling something 3 times before I get it right, before it comes out perfectly foiled or in the right place. But most of the time when I foil these days, it comes out right first time. So first of all, I wanted to talk about different types of card, because people don't seem to understand what the different types are. So I've got here some plain white card. Now I'm not sure how well these are going to differentiate on the camera, but this is plain white. This is a stamping card, so it's good for doing ink techniques on, but it is a smooth white card. Okay, I've had it many years, so the particular brand isn't available. I don't want to talk about particular brands, I want to talk about types of card. Okay, so white card, and it's got a crinkly edge, because one of the things I want to look at is the conditions card is kept in. This piece has been in my dining room, which is nice, warm, dry room all the time, in my main house. But I know people have sort of craft sheds and things like that, where the conditions might not be optimum all the time. So the other half of this piece, and I'm going to prove it's the other half because I've cut it with a wiggly edge, is actually out in my back porch, wrapped up in a cellophane bag, so it's sealed up, but it's getting cold. And I'm going to bring that in a while. So plain white card, craft card. This is cheap craft card, it's not even double-sided craft card. Yeah, so you can foil in it, but you don't get pristine results necessarily. Coated card. Now you can see the light reflecting off the surface of this. So when possibly in card making kits and backing paper kits, you might get coated card. Now that's usually really, really good for foiling because it's got a super smooth surface. And if you're not sure if it's coated, here's the test. I'm going to take a water brush. I'm going to put some water on it, and it just sort of sits there in a puddle. It doesn't soak in because the card's actually got a plastic coating on it. So I shall wipe that up. So when we talk about coated card, that's what we mean. Card with a plastic coating on the top. It's been printed and then coated. This piece of card started off as a piece of plain white card, and I've used mica sprays on it. It's an offcut from something I use for a larger project. So people don't always realise you can foil onto that. That's fine. If you've got watercolour, you can foil on top of that. Whatever sprays and things you've got, it's worth giving them a try. But you must make sure the card's thoroughly dried afterwards. Okay. Did this some time ago, and even when I got it out of storage, I put it on top of my foiling platform with the plate on top, just to make sure it'd come back to room temperature and was nice and dry. So solid core card, I find this really good. If you get over foiling and you need to rub it off, you're not going to reveal any white underneath. So get plain smooth card, more plain smooth card. Pearlescent card. Now this has a coating on it, but it's a bit different. It tends to be a porous coating quite often, and it's just, let me get the camera to zoom in a bit more and focus. There you are. You can see it's kind of pearl. Okay, I find that really good for foiling on, as long as it's smooth. I've got an offcut of card from my what I use for making card blanks. That's 300 GSM super smooth card. I've got some more pearl card. Perhaps that shows up better on the camera. So some dark grey. I like using lots of different colours. More of that. Oh, watercolour card. It's a fairly smooth watercolour card, but it's not completely smooth. Don't know if you can pick up the texture. The texture is more on one side than the other. I'll zoom right in on it and focus on it. And then see, I'm not sure you're going to get that. But yeah, watercolour card. I've got coloured card that's not solid core. So, some of that. Now this, I would have thought would be really nice for foiling on. It's from the same pack as that blue card. But actually this is a card, it's coated, but I think it's a porous coating. We can check. Have a little bit of water just on a corner here. Now you see that sits on top. It's a coated card. But in my experience I've had trouble foiling it. So I thought I'll try that just to prove that not everything works when I try it. Well, that's the big piece that came from. And that's the piece of the coated card. Oh, so I got a piece of plain black card. So we'll mirror card. Yep, you can foil onto that. Coloured mirror card. And rainbow mirror card. So I've got lots of things to try out. I don't know if I'll get through them all, but lots of different types of card. People often post in the Facebook group, I mean, what card is best for hot foiling? And my answer is always the card you want the foil on. Always, whatever you're thinking of using for your project, give it a try before you shop for something special. If you've got card, try it out. And that can be where a whole card starts. You can take a scrap of card, maybe like this, and you'll maybe try foiling a sentiment on it, and you'll see how different colours work on it, and you go, oh, that looks nice. Oh, I could do that. Oh, I could do that. You have to start somewhere. Okay. So, my next piece of advice is, now I've got a GoPress Foil, but this advice, all this advice that I'm giving today, applies to all the foiling platforms. The only thing special about the GoPress Foil is that its top plate is attached by a hinge. Okay, and I know people with the Glimmer sometimes use tape to turn their top plate, so it's got a hinge, sometimes at the side, wherever will work, because that's just more convenient. But it doesn't have a timer. Okay, so my top myth I want to bust is that you have to heat your foiling plate for a certain time. Now the Glimmer has a 30-second timer, and the Gemini Foilpress actually has a timer you can set and a table of recommended times for heating your foil stamp. But it's natural physics. This is hot, and as soon as you put a foil stamp on it, foil stamp starts getting hot, and the temperature you want your foil stamp at is the same temperature as this platform here that is hot. If I put my hand above it, I can feel the heat coming off. Okay, so the timer is just there for your convenience, perhaps to help stop you being too impatient, but it doesn't have anything to do with when your foil stamp starts heating. Your foil stamp starts heating as soon as you put it down on the hot plate, and it can't get too hot because it won't get any hotter than the hot plate, and that's the temperature you want it to be. So don't be worried about putting your foil stamp on and leaving it for a good long time to warm up, because the #1 cause of poor results on foiling is that the foil stamp isn't hot enough. Okay, so I'm going to put this back on its base so it stays hot, and then I'm going to talk about the foil stamps. I've got a selection here. Let me just point the camera down a bit more. There we are, and zoom in a bit maybe. focus on those. So I've got two Spellbinders ones. I've got a sentiment one that's got nice fine text lines. Okay, and I've got, this is part of a corner set, and this has got more solid areas of foiling. Okay, I've got a cheap foiling plate. It's thinner. It was cheap. Oops. I suspect it's made in China, but they're all made in China. But it's made out of the same thickness metal as cutting dies are made, as good quality foiling stamps are usually thicker. Okay, but this works just as well. Okay, but because the thicknesses can vary, and this one is a Couture Creations one, the thickness can vary, so I only ever foil one foil stamp at a time, unless I've got small foil stamps from a set such as the Glimmer foliage sets, the organic foliage. There's lots of little foil stamps in there, and if I'm doing a little arrangement I might put 2 or 3 of those together, because they're all from the same set, so they're all going to be the same thickness, and they tend to be small ones with fine lines. I'm not going to run into problems with areas needing more pressure, because when you have flat areas, let me just move the camera again so that I can see what I'm doing. Right, so when you have ones like this, you can see that those leaves are quite a broad area of solid foiling, so they will need more pressure than the fine lines on this foil stamp. Okay, and although this has got fine lines, it's thinner, so I need to make up the difference in the depth using card shims. Okay, so let's put a foil stamp on. I'm going to do this little corner one. Okay, it shouldn't take very long to warm up. Now if I want to position a foil stamp, which bit of card shall we use? Oh, sport for choice now. Oh, let's go with a piece of plain white card. Okay, so obviously I wouldn't be doing a design on this, or I might be doing a sentiment on this side. So I want my foil stamp sort of there-ish. I just need to move the camera again. There we are. That's better. Okay, so to get it in the right position, I could just try and lay it on my foiling platform and try and get my card and my foil stamp lined up, or I could tape it in place. But if I tape it in place while it's heating, my card is also going to be heating, and there's a greater chance then that I'll get over foiling. So what I do, I use a magnet from a sort you get with a stamping press. Okay, so maybe this sort. They call these an easy lift magnet, or your standard sort, and I've wrapped mine in masking tape so that it gives me a handle on it. So I've turned it into an easy lift one basically. Okay, so you take that and you put it on the other side of the card, and then I can position my foil stamp where I want it. Okay, and then I can put it on my platform. So I'm going to pull the platform off so that I can get it where the camera can see it. But when I'm working, I leave it in place on the base so that it just heats every time it needs to heat. Okay, so I do that. So you're going to go, yeah, but you're putting your card on as well. I am to start with, so I'm going to put my piece of card here. Remember, I'm just using scraps of card for this. So you can experiment with scraps of card. Don't be afraid to use some foil. Okay, you need to get to grips with it. Put that there. So I've just put my magnet out of the way, and I've taped my card to the edge here, and then I'm going to just lift it up and move it off the heat, and then I'm going to put this back on my base to heat up. As I say, when I'm just working, I leave it on the base. I don't keep moving things around. So that's going to warm up, and I don't mind how long it takes to warm up because I can't overheat it. Okay, so I've got a selection of foils. I've got some blue foil. I don't actually know what brand this one is. I can't remember. This one came with a foil art kit. It seems to work for hot foiling. And then I've got some nice Couture Creations gold foil. Okay, so let's try the blue one. As I say, this is a compilation of lots of my top tips. I just want to cut my foil roughly to size. Okay, now card shims. So I haven't tested this foil stamp. I'm testing it now with a scrap of card. It's only a small foil stamp. If I've got a big plate, I don't have to foil all of it. I can use a small piece of card and just do a small section to see how many shims I'm going to need. So when we say shim, I mean a piece of 250 GSM, which I think is about £100 cardstock. £100 weight, that is, if you're in America. So, sort of thing you'd use for making your toppers. Yeah, I've got a piece of the same card folded in half, and you can see there's bits of foil on these. It's because they've had lots of use. So I just keep reusing the same ones. So there's another single one. Don't know how many we're going to need. There's another double one. Gosh, that one's had lots of use. Look at the state of that. Right, okay. So, as I say, I keep reusing them. So, I think probably we ought to start with one and see what happens. So, I'm going to turn the camera so that it's pointing at the foiling machine. Okay. And my foiling machine is heating up. I think I've got a bit too much foil there. Not sure I cut it to quite the right shape. Yeah, that'll do. Right, so I'm going to open the lid. My foiling platform is actually heating at the moment because it knows it's not quite hot enough. Well, my piece of foil isn't quite long enough, I don't think. So we'll have a little bit missing. I can put another piece of foil on. Let's just do that. There we are. Okay, I can flip my card back down. I'm going to put my single shim on the top. Okay, because I know I'm going to need at least one. I'm going to slide it out. Now, if you've got a glimmer and it's a tight fit, okay, you might find it easier if you kind of push and pull at the same time. So rather than just yanking, push against the base as you slide platform out, and maybe hold the top plate in place. And then I'm going to roll it through my die cutting machine. So nothing could move because my piece of card is taped down here. Now the other advantage to that is if this hasn't foiled, then I can always just flip it back down and it will be in exactly the same place. So let's have a look, see what the foiling's like. Yeah, and it is actually patchy. I don't think I can actually show it to the camera, but the foiling is patchy. So I'm going to flip that back down, and I'm going to put my double layer shim on instead, or another single layer, depending on how you've got them cut up. And I've got a set of big ones as well if I'm doing a larger area, so that I can actually put a larger shim on. So the foiling platform's heating up, the red light's flashing. So I'm waiting till that is at temperature, and then I'll try again. Now that looks like that has foiled perfectly now, so let's show you how it's come out. Right, there we are. I'm just going to take the tape off the back of my card. Now I am using a good quality masking tape. It's a decorator's masking tape for freshly painted surfaces. Okay, so there's my foil. Okay, let me just get this where I can. Okay, so I'm going to zoom the camera in so you can see that. Nice and sharp, there we are. Okay, let's take the foil off. And the bit at the bottom. And there you can see nice, crisp foiling. Okay, so that's on my plain white card that I use for my card blanks. I have got some overfoiling. Oh, can you see? Let me get it in the right place. Can you see just inside that curl, a little bit of shine, there's a bit of overfoiling. Turn the card around, maybe you can see it better with the light on it a different way. There we are, right there. Focus the camera. No, I'm going to have to zoom in more rather than go closer. There, you can see that. So that's probably happened because I had to leave it on there for longer and heat it more, and there's a bit more just in that curl there. Let's get that. Now because I'm on plain white card, that's easy to remove. Okay, one of the advantages of using plain white card. So, tools for removing overfoiling. This is a Faber-Castell rubber eraser for coloured pencil. They're really cheap to buy, and it's really convenient because you can sharpen it to a nice fine point. Or I've got a Tombow mono eraser, which is basically an ink eraser. It's got a coarse end and a finer end. Okay, so they're really good, but when it's really close to your foiling like this, and I'll try and get this where the camera can see it. Don't know if I'm going to succeed today. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this and just rub out that bit of foiling. It was there, and there's another piece that I can barely see in that curl there. I'm having trouble keeping this so the camera can see what I'm doing. So there, hopefully you can see that the overfoiling has gone. it was in that curl there. Okay, let me put the camera up a bit and get some better light on it. Is that better? Yeah. So yeah, because it's plain white card, it's easily rubbed off and it doesn't spoil the surface of the card. Let's put the camera back to 1%. There we are. Right, so doesn't matter how long it's been on there. So that was that sort of card. Let me try something else. So let's try, where's my piece of coated card gone? I've buried everything now. Oh, what have I done with that? I'll tell you what, let's do the grey pearlescent card and let's use the pink foil. Now I've left my foil stamp where it is. As I say, it doesn't matter how long I heat it for. Is that going to be long? Yes. So a small piece of foil. Now different foils can need different amounts of pressure, particularly different brands. So now I'm going to show you what happens when I don't cut my foil to size. Okay, so I've left my hot foil stamp in place, so let's bring this back over. So this is a similar sized piece of card to what I was using, so I'm just going to line it up. Obviously if I wanted this precision placed, I'd have to take the foil stamp off and let it cool and then reposition it with a magnet, but just for quickness I'm just going to tape my foil, my card in place. There you are, you can see it's taped there. Right, and my foil stamp is there. I'm going to put some foil on. So I've not trimmed my foil to shape, because another thing that happens is that people don't do that and then they get even more overfoiling. So I'm going to go back to a single shim. Now, everything's hot, so I should just be able to put this on. I'm just going to make sure the platform's at temperature. Yeah, it's just heating, so it'll just be a couple of seconds. And because that is a coated pearlescent card, it usually takes less pressure. So that's why I haven't put 2 shims on. Trying to find where the end is. There it is. So, all right, there we are. So I'm just going to pull the foiling platform off the base, roll it through my die cutting machine. Take my shim off. I'm going to flip it back and just check to see whether or not it's foiled nicely. And I think, yes, that looks good. I'll just, if it wasn't, I could flip it back and another shim. I'm just going to take the tape off the back. So there, so it doesn't matter that my foil stamp was already hot and it'd been heated for ages, and the fact that I've just put the card down when I need to means that I haven't got lots of overfoiling, thankfully. Okay, so time is getting on. So what I want to do next, I think we'll have a change of foiling plate, and I'll get to those 2 pieces of card that I prepared. So take that off. Just try to find my magnetic feelers. And they're great, except they stick to everything else in my toolbox. Right, so that one's off. Right, and somewhere here, buried underneath all this, I've got my piece of card with its jaggedy edge. Okay, so I'm going to foil this hot foil plate. Okay. So I'm going to position it where I want it. It might be in the middle of a topper, but I'm going to do it at one end of this piece of card. Let's show you how so there's my foiling platform. I've just put my card in place up against the edge, tape it down, hold the foil plate still and slide the magnet and flip the card. Okay, and then if you put a plate on top, it will help keep the heat in and things will warm up more quickly. So I'm going to use the gold foil for this one. Just wanted to, illustrate it doesn't matter particularly which foil you're using. Some work better, more easily than others. Couture Creations is kind of a medium. Got some foils that foil much more easily. And some that are much harder. Okay, and as it's a roundish foiling plate, I'm going to snip the corners off because they tend to dip down and give you a patch of overfoiling. So I'm just snipping the corners. Hopefully I've got that roughly the right size. Okay, now my platform says it's hot. Okay, it's gone green. But if I put my hand on it, I don't think all the heat's come through to the top of that foiling plate yet. So I'm going to leave that a little bit longer. Yeah, I can feel it's getting hotter. Probably about the time I feel there and I think, yeah, that's hot all over. In fact, I can almost feel that, yeah, that bit in the middle is warmer. There you go. And then the platform decides it needs more heat because the foil plate has drawn heat out of the platform. Now, I foil with this card a lot, so save messing about, I'm going to go straight to using 3 shims for this, okay? But if you might need to take a small piece of card and do some test runs and build up on one, see where you get to. Die cutting machines vary as well, so it might, if you've got a very new, very tight mechanism die cutting machine, then you might not need as many shims as somebody with a more worn die cutting machine of the same model. Now, I'm not quite sure how worn mine is. I bought it second hand. It seems to be doing a grand job. Right, so that's hot. Foil on, card down. roll it. Check it. No, hasn't foiled properly. So I'll go one more. Well, that looks better straight away. Yep. So that's foiled really nicely. Okay. So now I'm going to go and get the other half of this piece of card. Okay. So I want this to be live. So I'm going to leave the camera rolling. So this has been in my unheated back porch, but it's sealed up, so you'd think that'd be all right. So I'm going to take it out of this packet. I've got this theory that when you bring cold card into a warm room, that you can get a small amount of condensation on the surface. That's from the air. Okay, so I'm going to put this straight on the foiling platform. Let me turn the camera so you can see what I'm doing. So it's the same card, it's just the other half of it. I'll prove that in a minute. So let's tape it down. I'm going to put the other piece of foil that I cut on. Same shims. I'm even going to roll it twice. I'm going to see what's happened. And as it happens, no, I haven't got condensation on this. I don't think it's got cold enough. But I certainly have at times got some cardstock out and found I'm getting problems with my foiling inexplicably because it's worked previously. And the only thing I can put it down to is the moisture content of the card. So do be careful of that. Yeah, they really were two pieces of card. Oh, there we are. So, there. So, yeah, they were cut from the same piece of card. And they do seem to have both fold quite nicely. That's the second one. Let me just zoom the camera in. Get a good look at that. So that's the second one. I think the first one is slightly better, slightly smoother. But I don't think my card has got as cold as I thought it was going to out there for an hour. But certainly if it had been out there for days, and that's where I kept it, and then I got a piece in, you really want to make sure it's not only come back to room temperature but thoroughly dried out before you use it. If you've got any doubts about whether or not your card is dry, a good thing to do is to put a plate on top of your hot foiling platform and just put it on top and leave it, and let the heat help the card to dry. The heat gun's probably a bit too severe because it will heat the surface of the card very quickly, but it won't sort of bake it through. Okay, so lots of tips there. Oh, and I wanted to show you one that I'm fairly sure won't work. Let me get some gold. Let's go. That's better. Right, gold foil. Because in my head, gold foil on this sort of bronze card ought to look really nice. But I bet it don't work. And I think the piece of card isn't quite big enough either, so. But I'm going to give it a try. Just because it's yet another different type of card. Oh, yeah. Just fits. So foil goes coloured side down with a sort of metallic backing facing up. I'm going to go straight in with my 4 shims. I might then get over foiling, but I'm going to take the risk. That's patchy. Let's try it. I can't go any more than that. It doesn't like going through the die cutting machine if I go any more than that. That is really tight for the die cutting machine. That's probably tighter than it is for actually die cutting. That's better. So you can see how having your card taped to the edge really does save you wasting card and foil. So hopefully that's summarised a whole load of my tips in one video. I hope I haven't taken too long. And my final top tip is, don't be afraid to use some card and foil to experiment. It's the only way you're going to get familiar with what you're doing. You're not going to find much in the way of step-by-step tutorials for whichever foiling plates you've got, because they're, you know, to make an exact card. Spellbinders do them for their new releases when they come out, but unless you're buying their new release, that's not a lot of help. Except look for inspiration, think whether or not you can do something similar to what you see on YouTube or on blog posts with the foil stamps you've got. And I've found that designing for foiling is much closer to designing for stamping than it is for die cutting. So stamping, you have to plan out what's going to be in the foreground, what's going to be in the background, what you need to mask off, that kind of thing. Foiling, you need to decide where you're going to want your foiling, what layers of your card you're going to want it on before you stick anything together. And if I'm making a card, quite often I get everything ready all the different bits and pieces that I think I'm going to use, and I'll fit it together without any glue and decide where I want the foiling before I put the card together. So when you've got, you know, decided on your bits of card, your pattern paper and everything else, as I say, put it together and then think, ooh, would it look nice to put a foiled butterfly there, or a foiled flower, or would it be nice for a foiled sentiment, and how big's my foiled sentiment, and get it out and see how it will fit with the design of your card, and if you need to adapt anything to make it fit. Okay, and these tips are for working with hot foil plates. There are other techniques involving using cutting dies and embossing folders and a whole load of other things, but these are my tips when you're foiling with hot foil plates. Okay, thanks for your patience and for watching.